Are you wanting to watch the MCU for the very first time, but you don't know anything about it? Like, who the heck is the Kingpin? Welcome to the Crop Top Critic. I'm Alex and I love everything movies, TV, and geeky related, and I want you to love that stuff too. This is a part of my MCU Explained series where you'll learn all about the Kingpin's origins, abilities, and some fun facts that will help develop your future passion for the MCU. Let's first talk about the comic book origins of the Kingpin. First appearing in 1967's Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, is the most prominent figure in organized crime. Wilson's life of crime began at the age of 12, where he bulked up his body and then murdered one of the bullies that tormented him. Not quite how I'd handle it. At the age of 15, Wilson was able to lead a rather successful group of small-time gangsters who jokingly referred to him as the Kingpin of Crime. But soon his talents were recognized by a powerful crime lord, Don Rigoletto, who Wilson eventually murdered and then took over his operations, cementing himself as the Kingpin of Crime. Kingpin remained in power for decades, getting enough strength to be able to get the attention of superheroes like Spider-Man or Daredevil, and even be able to contend with powerful terrorist organizations like Hydra. With his operations reaching on a global scale, the Kingpin has a nice comfy spot on top of all organized crime. Now let's talk about the Kingpin in the MCU.
It means that I'm not the Samaritan. That I'm not the priest or the Levite. That I am the ill intent who set upon the traveler on a road that he should not have been on.
The Kingpin makes his MCU debut in the Netflix series Daredevil, where he's played by the talented Vincent D'Onofrio, who, fun fact, also plays this guy.
On my head.
Wilson Fisk was born in New York City to a very loving mother and an extremely abusive father, which is never a good start. Unlike his comic book version, Wilson Fisk was a good boy, but living with a father who both mentally and physically abused him started to warp his mind. So at the age of 12, Wilson Fisk grabbed a hammer and then beat his father to death with it. Once again, I don't condone murder, but in this case, I kinda get it. After the murder, his mother sends Wilson away to live with relatives, and after many years, he returns to New York City as a powerful criminal businessman, devising a plan to ruin Hell's Kitchen and then rebuild it in his image. Gentrification, basically. With his rising power, he gains control over nearly every criminal in New York City, making himself the Kingpin of Crime. But real quick, if you're getting value out of this video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. That lets me know that you're enjoying this video, you find it helpful, and that I should make more of these. I love this stuff, so I will happily do it as much as you need me to. But since Kingpin is in a superhero universe, what kind of superpowers does he have? The Kingpin is a normal human being, so he doesn't have any superpowers, but if you saw the way this man can fight and take a beating, you'd probably guess otherwise. The Kingpin is a big, strong man made up of pure muscle. He's strong enough to lift a grown man up in the air with just one arm. He can beat someone to death with just a few hits, and he's even able to punch through brick. Kingpin is so strong that he's able to fight superheroes like Daredevil to a standstill. For context sake, Daredevil is highly trained in hand-to-hand combat. Plus, he has super senses that give him an advantage in fights. And Kingpin, who is not trained by anything but the streets, nearly killed Daredevil. And Kingpin can take a hit too. He's been beat near to death multiple times, he's been shot, and one time he got hit by a limousine into a building and then got up, less hurt and more annoyed. I would never want to fight someone like this guy. But make no mistake, Kingpin isn't just some big strong guy. Like, you don't get to be the bosses of bosses by just having muscle. The Kingpin has a genius level intellect, able to stay several steps ahead of his enemies, like the FBI. Yeah, this dude outsmarts the government casually. Kingpin's also a master tactician, able to cause a tidal wave of criminal activity in Hell's Kitchen for years without revealing his identity to anyone, even to the people who work for him. And he's also able to manipulate the public into supporting him and thinking that superheroes like Daredevil were terrorists. The Kingpin was also a master businessman, so he didn't just control the criminal underworld, He also had his hands in the NYPD, the FBI, multiple banks. There is nothing in New York City that the Kingpin doesn't own. But now let's get into some fun facts about Kingpin that will show you just how crazy this guy is. Shot in the eye. Kingpin is confronted by his goddaughter Maya Lopez, aka Echo, because she found out that Kingpin had murdered her father. So, being the gangster that she is, she shoots Kingpin in the face. He's totally dead, right?
Wrong.
The Kingpin is soon found to be alive, albeit completely blind, but he eventually gets better. Crushes a man's skull. For a normal human, Kingpin is ridiculously strong. In one storyline, an underboss of Kingpin named Mr. Big was talking a big game against Kingpin, questioning his power as the boss of bosses. Not one to be insulted, Kingpin places a Spider-Man mask over Mr. Big's head and then proceeds to crush his skull with his bare hands. A feat that would require about 520 pounds of force, something that's twice as much as normal human hands can do. But he doesn't have superpowers. Poor guy. The Kingpin will go to devastating lows to destroy his enemy, and this is apparent in one storyline where Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, identity is revealed to Kingpin, who then decides to make Matt Murdock's life as miserable as possible. The Kingpin has the IRS freeze Matt Murdock's accounts, foreclose his home, bars him from practicing law, and even blows up his house. This leaves Daredevil depressed and paranoid of all of his loved ones, believing that they were all working for Kingpin. Almost kills Aunt May. Another case of how ruthless Kingpin can be, during the Civil War storyline, Spider-Man reveals his identity to the public after registering with the government. Immediately, Kingpin wanted his head and put a hit out on Spider-Man, but the assassin accidentally shot Aunt May. Kingpin accepted this as a win, feeling confident that this was enough to break Spider-Man mentally. That was until a black-suited Spider-Man showed up at his door. Mayor of New York. In one storyline, the Kingpin managed to become the mayor of New York City. Granted, the vote was fixed, he is a villain after all. As mayor, Kingpin made a new law that made superheroes completely outlawed on the city streets, and if they continued doing superhero work, they would be hunted down by the Kingpin's Thunderbolts, a group of supervillains who were unfortunately given a badge. But what other characters and MCU topics do you want to learn about? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, click on the boxes right here, and I'll see you in a bit.